And we're here to talk, as Steve was alluding to, about creating well-being for body and mind. And Bob, we're assuming that they are as of one, the body and mind, aren't we?
Certainly hope so. At this time of day, I'm not sure, though.
Michael, what do we mean when we say well-being? Do we know? It's just we know it when we see it?
Well, one of the things that is, of course, the sense that you're under control and that your life is stable under control. It's a confident life. It's a life in which you really feel positive and about the energies that you have and positive about the way you are stabilizing and controlling your life. It's critical that you maintain your faculties, of course. That means you maintain your brain is active. It's critical that you maintain yourself as a player on the stage in life and not withdraw from it to a point that many people do in older age, to a point in which they're sort of in the wings, looking on at it as a passive observer, no longer really a player. And if you can do that, if you can maintain yourself, very, very likely your brain can last as long as your body in a happy state. And you can maintain an active social person that's really still a player in society and life, and very self-satisfied because of those human interactions and values and abilities that you sustain.
But self-satisfaction has its dangers, because you could be complacent and just sit back.
Right. Self-satisfaction is not enough. I mean, we know many people that are self-satisfied, in fact, that are very distorted in their older life. So one of the things that's absolutely critical also is that we're continually monitoring, honestly monitoring what we're up to. And in so many lives, so much time is spent so wastefully. You know, in my country, the average person over 60 is spending about 50 hours of a week, about 40% of their time, looking at a screen. Not living life, really, but observing other people like a voyeur. You know, and we were actually designed, our brains are actually designed to take in information on the basis of taking in that information, acting on it immediately. And we're designed to be active social creatures, not withdrawn as passive observers of other people socially. And so it's very crucial in life that we evaluate whether we, in fact, we're a false player or a real player in life, and that we see ourselves for what we really are, and not as a distorted caricature of our former, younger, more useful and valuable self.
James, how do we know when we're a real player?
I'm sorry?
How do you know when you're a real player?
Well, some people never know. You know, I think the challenge is that, as Michael was saying, I mean, you have to be engaged, and you have to be engaged in an authentic way, in something that resonates with you, something you're passionate about, as Robert has talked about, and that's how you know you're a real player, when you are active in life and everything that it brings you. And I think that's what happens to some people, though, is they think that an ideal life is a life that just goes this way or it's always up. And actually, if it's just always the same, it's actually not an active life at all. What makes a life worthwhile is the fact that we face challenges, and we learn resilience. And so, you know, what happens is, and this is this concept of equanimity. All of our lives are going to have ups and downs, but what happens to so many of us is when we have the up, we want to hold on to that and maintain that and say, boy, that feels so good. And then the other thing is when we go down, we go, oh, this is horrible, my life is ruined. But our lives are always this undulating pattern. And it's keeping, though, a sense of calmness and a sense that this is just part of life without getting lost in the extremes on either end. And that in and of itself will make you realize that you have an abundant, real life. And so.
But Yeshe, that's easier to say than to do when you're facing some incredible challenges like the end of life.
Yeah, but I think the main thing about well-being is that it's a feeling. Coming from my perspective, it's a way we feel about things. So, and it's a happiness, but not an excited kind of happiness, more a contentment. And I think until we really achieve our full potential, we're actually always looking for well-being, because we're always looking for a sense of completeness or wholeness. And having difficulties in your life can actually be an incredible opportunity to develop that wholeness.
But I'm interested in you saying you've achieved your full potential. How do you know? Because if you listen to Michael, he's saying, well, you just got to keep on going because you never quite know when you're going to get there.
Well, I'm coming from a philosophical point of view. In my early days, I was a Catholic, and then when I became a Buddhist, I was...
You've come a long way.
I've also met a Buddhist who became a Christian, so it works both ways. But in both those philosophical beliefs, the description of perfection or God or Buddha is that the mind, or the being, is all-pervasive and omniscient, all-knowing, all-compassionate. So I think there's something about our mind that we can actually overcome. We can remove all the obscurations. We can remove all our ignorance. So there is an ultimate goal that we can achieve, an ultimate state of perfection, and I think that's the ultimate state of well-being.
Bob?
Present?
Yes. I'm really pleased to hear that. With 31 minutes, 51 seconds to go. No. How important is autonomy in this search for well-being, a sense of self-control?
It's very important. I think that there are three, in our research and some of other people, there are three key psychological needs that actually we need to experience to feel that we're doing well and that things are under control. One is autonomy, feeling that we have a choice in what we do, not being told what to do all the time, but we do have a certain choice and control. The other one is competence. We need to feel that we're progressing toward a goal, that we're getting better at something. If not, we may change areas of field. And the last one is connecting with people, relatedness. Now, obviously, this is what we're getting. If we have these three things, I think we're doing pretty good. And you can get your relatedness, competence, autonomy in different areas, most areas if possible. You can get them in different ones, but you need to experience a dose of these things to be fully functioning.
And it's really the three pillars of positive psychology.
They are very important, yes.
So, autonomy, it's a hard thing to achieve. You're in a job, somebody's telling you what to do, you've got no control, and you feel as if you're on the treadmill, you're a single parent with 3 kids.
This is TV, right? Or the real world, sometimes even worse than that, because you're being tackled from each side. Even, and that's why I felt that some of the work presented here, during the 2 days, for instance, mindfulness was so interesting that if you're mindful about yourself and you're opening up to other people, you might understand where they're coming from as well. So your autonomy is important, but respecting that of others is also very important. And if you feel that your boss is being, has this pressure because, they're losing money, whatever, you can understand where he's coming from, so that even if your autonomy is not being fully supported at one given point in time, maybe you can understand what's happening to this person and be more compassionate and preserving your own autonomy, knowing what's going on. If you're only being reactive, then 2 things will happen. Your own autonomy will be compromised anyways, and second, that of the other person. So the challenge is to be able to be accepting of others while trying to achieve your own well-being. And that's a challenge of everybody has to face, I think, in everyday life.
You wanted to say something, James?
No, I think that's exactly right. It's being in this position where you actually recognize that other people are suffering as well and respect that and try to avoid judgment. Because, as soon as you start judging people, you start separating yourself from people. The other challenge is, and this is the affliction of our humanity, is that, we're the species who, unfortunately, has a memory, and a memory of the past, and also a perception of a future. And what does that do for us? We spend a great deal of time thinking about what we should have done, and an immense amount of time thinking about a future we cannot control. And this keeps us from living in the present, right? And really experiencing the fullness of life. And that's one of the challenges, is actually to live in the present and directly communicate with others in an authentic way. You achieve happiness in your life when there is community, when there is authentic communication, and where you are receptive to others in a non-judgmental way, and hopefully they're receptive to you as well, and are non-judgmental. Because what happens to all of us so often is we're so afraid that people are going to judge us. So we carry this shield, if you will, to try to give a projection to people. And the cost of carrying that shield appears if we have no problems, no issues, that we have our act together, is this huge amount of psychic energy that's lost. Versus when you're able to let that down and just show people in an authentic way that you're frail, that you're fragile, that you're in pain, and that you hurt. And it's so, so hard for people to do that. But what is amazing is how many times, though, when you've been in a position where you've actually done that, or somebody has shown their vulnerability to you, what do you automatically want to do? You want to embrace them, not so much judge them. And this is what we're geared to do. And fundamentally, when you're able to do that, all barriers break down. And actually, in a very deep sense, you feel happy and have well-being, because that's what we're here for.
Michael?
Well, I think the problem is, in a sense, worse for we modern humans, because there's so many things that carry us away from reality. I mean, we've evolved culture in a way that, in a sense, it's designed to relieve us of it. I mean, life is, to a large extent, constructed a modern life to live life without much of a brain.
So it removes resilience.
And therefore, and we have to remember
American
that
politics.
we have to remember that we were designed to be connected to the present moment, to reality. We're actually designed to drink in information on the basis of it in real time to operate on it. We're not designed to be passive viewers of life. We're not really designed to sit in chairs for half of our life. Our bodies are actually designed to move. And in fact, there are very few natural movements that you can make. What the hell kind of natural movement is this, right? And that, to a large extent, we paralyze ourselves. We paralyze ourselves physically, and we paralyze ourselves mentally, because we have these constructs that dominate us. We are so far removed from reality. And I think a sense of well-being, basically, a critical part of it is to reconnect with that reality, with the moment. And not just from the point of view of how I think of myself inward, but how I think of myself as what I'm really designed to be, and that's a connected social being.
So my question to you, and I'll follow it up to Yeshe, is are we conning ourselves sometimes, though, by being in the present, that gives us a moment of autonomy in a world where we're actually being oppressed,
right?
And therefore we don't truly change?
Well, especially if we have the right attitude about it, which is that, and especially if we can get this sense of value and self-worth that can come from designing our lives so that we celebrate all of the little successes that every one of us has the capability of making. You know, if we train somebody systematically, a child or adult, in a way in which we assure or control in the training that most times they succeed, well, one thing we see invariably is an increase of the self-confidence of that individual. They feel like they're in more control. Life, the brain, progression in the brain is built on success. Every one of us can find ways in the progression of what we're doing that will assure that what we're doing in the domains that we're interested in at this period of our life, that we'll be better at them tomorrow than we are today. And from all of this success comes a sense that we are in control, that we recover our savoir-faire.
That's what I'm trying to explore. So you're saying it's okay to have a sense that you're in control, even if you're not? So now I'm talking about transformation, where you don't feel your life is miserable and you're not feeling autonomous. We're lucky in this room in a sense that we're pre-selected.
My feeling is that every living human being has the potential to be in a better place in their future. Now that even the paralyzed individual has the potential within their skull to be in a better place in their immediate future. It doesn't mean that it's not effortless, and it doesn't mean that you have to take this on as a systematic enterprise in your life, but we have this potential. We've been given this gift. And from that should come true optimism and a positive view about where you're going in life, and what will come out of that confidence is your savoir-faire. Your understanding that, in fact, you are in command, you are in control.
So transformation is always possible?
Absolutely.
Do you believe that, Yeshe?
No, definitely. And I think we do have autonomy, even though we are so interconnected, and we don't often have choice about where we are, whether we're sitting or standing or whatever. But we always have choice about how we perceive others and how we perceive the world, and also how we react to things, how we we have a choice to be compassionate or to be hurtful with every interaction that we have with a person. So we have that autonomy.
How do you deal with this in a hospice, where people are nearing the end of their lives, where the capacity for transformation might be quite limited? Because the conversation so far is about, we're going to leap over a fence, we're going to do stuff here, we're going to change, we've got potential, there's still time, but there may not be time. How do you talk to people when, because you clearly believe that some transformation is possible at that point, but tell me what the conversation is.
Well, I think the transformation then, in a way, is even easier, because a lot of the things that we get concerned about in life are not a priority for people at the end of life. So transformation can happen by, like if people are regretting something that they've done in their life, or they've got damaged relationships, to help them resolve those and be at peace with people. If they have fear about what's coming next, you can talk with people and explore that, give them something to hold on to. I think also if people can have an experience at the end of life which is peaceful, it actually transforms the environment for everybody around. And there's a little danger in saying, you know, live well and die well, because then if you have a bit of trouble when you're dying, you sort of got the extra guilt and the extra failure and all of that. But giving people an opportunity to really talk about what's going on, because actually they can see it much more clearly than at any other time in life. The rest of your life you're distracted, not just by TV, but everything else that's going on.
What's it taught you?
It's taught me that dying is difficult, and that you really do need to live well and have your mind trained. There's mindfulness, which is about being aware of how you feel and how you act, but there's also mind training as a form of meditation. So if you find you're not very compassionate, you can actually meditate on compassion every day so that you strengthen that as a quality. And at the end of our life, there's so much going to be going on, we don't really have time then to intellectually decide, oh, I want to be a very compassionate person as I'm dying. You will be according to what your strongest habits are. Yeah.
Bob, let's talk about connectedness.
Sure.
And the importance of that.
Well, I think it is...
What have you been on today?
Well, you're seeing my real self.
That's right. No problem with self-definition here.
I think relatedness is one of the key elements that we kind of forget. I think that we're social animals, and that we are wired to connect with other people. And not only... But
some people believe they're doing it via Michael's screen.
Well, you know, it's the other thing that, I just want to go back to this point here, that sometimes people say, well, I want to connect with people for me, and they forget the other side of it, that I'm here for other people as well. And this is the element, I think, that sometimes we're in there for ourselves, that we have to be in there for other people, and we forget the second side of the equation. Once we start looking at people for themselves, there will be some returns anyways, and we don't need to focus on ourselves and did I get enough today or not. I think relatedness, the way you define it, is to be cared for, and care for other people.
Reciprocity.
Exactly. If not, it's not full relatedness. And once we understand that, I think we're in a position then to focus on helping other people and looking. And once we start doing that, and people say, well, you know, that's easy. No, it's not easy. Because sometimes we have problems and we have to overcome those obstacles. And it takes energy to overcome the obstacles. And sometimes passion can give you this energy, it could be something else as well. But once you overcome the obstacle and focus on other people, then you'll get some of the good stuff. But you need to overcome the initial obstacles, the barriers to go in there and help other people. But once you do, research is very clear. You know, those who help actually are doing much better than those who don't.
Volunteerism, James.
No, that's exactly right. In fact, there was a study that was done with a group of actually high school students and followed them actually for decades. But as they got older, over the age of 65, those who, I feel transcendence in this.
We're in the moment.
Those people who are engaged in volunteerism, and with the following caveat, but let me finish this comment. Those who are engaged in volunteerism, their life expectancy was almost doubled compared to those who didn't. And what is volunteerism? Again, it's reaching out to someone, getting outside of yourself, and engaging in a community. And the caveat is as follows, though. If the people who were doing the volunteerism did it out of a sense to impress another person, did it out of a sense that I'm doing this to show that person that I'm really a good person, versus saying, I am interested in engaging to help others, there was a big difference. You didn't get that effect if it wasn't authentic caring. And that's really the key here. This can't be an act. Now, don't get me wrong. If you look like almost all activities, there's always a bell-shaped curve. And the same is true of compassion. You can train yourself to be more compassionate. And in fact, at Stanford, we have developed, as has Emory and other institutions, actually training programs to increase your compassion.
How can you possibly train for that? I mean, psychiatrists are trained to go, or maybe,
I'm not even going to comment on that. No, you can actually, and there are certain measures, if you will, that are correlates of compassion. But the key here is, though, that even with short-term training, as short as 2 weeks, you can actually see benefits in regard to decreasing your stress, markers of stress, or improving your immune system. So there are ways, no question.
So you're training people to unleash some emotions that they haven't unleashed before, finding something within themselves.
Well, or perhaps have not appreciated how powerful those can be. Because remember what we're talking about here, what both Bob and Michael and Yeshe were talking about here, it is we are wired for a certain type of behavior, we're geared for certain types of things, but you know, it's like exercise. You can't get the potential of what your body is meant to be in terms of activity unless you get out there and do it, right? And frankly, it's the same as true of compassion. In fact, one of the things we have begun work on is the creation of a compassion gymnasium, where we actually give you a set of exercises, we incorporate actually what we know and have learned about designs of games actually, where there are reward mechanisms, and we show you in a timeline how you're increasing your compassion and what is the return on that investment of time. You strengthen it, it makes you feel better, and you get all the positive benefits, including potentially longevity or increased longevity. You get the benefit of decreased stress, you get the benefit of community. And these are very powerful things that ultimately are associated with living a happy or engaged life.
So here's the thing, I'll come to you in a second, Michael, do they have to feel reciprocity? So I give you compassion, I help you. Do I have to get the gratitude to get the benefit?
You know, it's funny, I was talking to the Dalai Lama about this, and I was talking about...
Your friend, the Dalai Lama.
I'm a name dropper here. But it's interesting because, you know, one of the things I was interested in is, does it really matter if somebody wants to do something and they don't have the right intent? And his statement is, it doesn't really matter, you know, if they're doing something for others and it benefits others, that's wonderful. And then he looked at me and he says, unless you're a Buddhist, because intent matters in that construct. But in terms of people who are not giving, quote unquote, authentically, they're not receiving any of the benefit. You know, they may be doing it for other people, but in terms of the things that we're talking about in sort of life improvement, they're not getting any of that. And it's really a sad thing because you see people who are quite affluent, who are sort of nominally doing actions that really, frankly, are to make them look better. It's not to actually demonstrate care. They're not receiving all of those benefits. And it's like the difference between what Bob, I think, was talking about in regard to passion. Is it obsessive passion or is it harmonious passion? You can have if you will, I believe, inharmonious compassion, right? You're not really being compassionate. You have a secondary agenda there. And if you have that, you're not receiving all the benefit.
Michael?
There's well-established research that shows that it's easy to train a person to be less empathetic.
To be less empathetic.
And that's basically how soldiers are trained. And it's valuable to a soldier to be not too empathetic. Isn't that a sad state of affairs? But there's also research that shows that it's possible to train a child and adult to be more empathetic. And what you need to do that is to put them in a context in training in which the training is fundamentally pro-social. It values in the teaching, you could say, the social value. But what I want to say is something sort of beyond this. Everyone should understand that they're a player in the control of the environment and the environment that they're in, and that will play right back on them and contribute to their well-being. So if you spread joy, if you're a source of happiness, if you move through life with compassion, if you move through life with positive spirit, you'll get it back. Now, you won't necessarily get it back one for one, but you can be an agent for change in your environment. You can be a positive force that makes your environment a much happier environment to live in. Or you can do the opposite. Again, you're to some extent in control of how happy your life is going to be and how self-satisfied you will be about it. And this doesn't have to be false. You know, your spreading of joy can be a generous thing. And to the extent to which it's generous, you will receive an unselfish goodwill backward. So one of my mantras in life is never move across the landscape and ignore the other people around you if you can connect with them. Because every time you give them a little bit of joy, guess what happens in your own brain? You're exercising your own brain. Giving the gift is almost as valuable from the point of view of the pleasure received as receiving the gift. So one of the things I think that's absolutely crucial in a life is to carry yourself in life in a way that makes your own life as positive as possible from the point of view of what you're contributing to it. Because you get back what you give to a very large extent.
But doesn't this create the potential for guilt? Because sometimes you just don't feel like being positive.
Well.
That's damn right. That's really
there are times when you just can't do it. But you know, there are a lot more times when people just don't rise up a little bit in their own self-appraisal of what they're contributing. And so many times when people are miserable, they do not realize that a primary source of the things they're miserable about is them.
Well, I think
we're getting close to somebody saying, just get a hold of yourself here in a minute.
I think some of Michael's points are very interesting, and I agree that sometimes we forget that we're part of the equation, and it is part of autonomy to choose to be, either proactive or to remain reactive. And I think in life we have to, when people, the old studies of Mike Csikszentmihalyi are very clear. People are happiest when they're active. They're at their worst when they're watching TV, for instance. I think people, have to realize that, there are different types of well-being. There's more, maybe some of it, can be obtained in the very short term. I call this the James Brown effect. I feel good, Okay.
You've got to lower the register just a little bit here.
But there's more to life than just feeling good. As Yeshe was saying, you have to try to strive to reach your potential, to be optimally functioning. And at times, doing that may hurt you a little bit. So there might be, a lack of lack of communication between what you want to experience at some point, I want to feel good, and what you'll be feeling because you're striving, but you haven't reached your potential yet. So you feel a bit disappointed. So you might, in the short term, feel bad. But it's all good because in the long term, you'll get better, make friends, improve, and you'll achieve some kind of optimally functioning life. And that's what you're trying to do. So the short term and the long term may not match, may not jive, but sometimes it's okay.
But actually, I want to come back to this notion of that in this conversation, we could be creating potentially unrealistic expectations because we are what we're born with to some extent. You know, the personality might be 70% genetic. And we're trapped inside our own genes here.
Genes are part of what we do with the environment too.
Well, I think we
True.
we do have some parts of us that we can't change. We can't change our environment, but we can change our mind. And I think we've seen so many examples during the last 2 days of people who have decided what it is that they want to achieve, what for them is a goal that they really want to achieve either for themselves or a contribution they want to make in the world. And then once having the goal, then bring everything together and change the attitude in order to achieve it. So the mental well-being actually is the primary source of well-being rather than the physical well-being. There's so many examples, I think, of people who have limitations physically but are actually able to experience mental well-being. But if you're mentally unwell, you're feeling depressed or whatever, it's extremely difficult to even have physical well-being.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, I got suitable little arcing from the panel here when I said that, James.
This is a conference about mind and its potential. No, I don't think there's any question. I think, we've seen a number of imminent and imminent people who clearly the research shows that while we may have genetic limitations, that being said, there is immense potential here. We have seen that each of us, through certain types of mental training, have incredible ability to create transformation in our lives. And it's not to say that every one of us has the unlimited potential to, let's see, be president. Is it a prime minister of Australia, maybe? That's an example. Or some other, what is perceived as this high position. What we do know is each of us has the potential to be better than what we are today. And each of us has the potential within ourselves to impact another person's life. You know, it's extraordinary because some people sit there and they say, I see so much suffering in the world and life is so hard for so many people and my own life is hard. How can I possibly have an impact? But every one of us in this room has the ability to impact another person's life every day in a positive way. And every time you do that, as has been talked about here, it comes back to you. And it may not come back to you on one-to-one exactly, but I will assure you, at least from my own experience, it comes back many-fold than what you give. And you'll be surprised when you open up your heart that way and give it away. And I think that's really the goal of a full life, is you give yourself to others and you sincerely care about others and what is happening in their life. Can you imagine a situation in the United States, 25% of people feel that they cannot go to someone to tell them about their pain and their suffering and where they're. A quarter of the people. There are people who work in cubicles next to a person and they know nothing about their lives. Can you imagine? And they'll sit there for years and have these superficial conversations. And we talk about science and technology. These are wonderful things. But until we focus these things on, if you will, problems of the human heart, where we connect with people and we take things that we've known for thousands of years and use them in our daily lives, that's how we connect with people. That's what we're meant for. That is community. And everyone has a right to be part of that community. And that's what each of us want.
You arced up the most, probably, when I talked about genes.
Genes?
No, Michael.
No, I was just going to say we could be reminded of the wonderful woman that taught these young girls to sing and play music. And one of the things that she said, which was beautiful and true, is that almost every child that came in the door could learn to play and sing on tune, could learn basically to accomplish on some level musical ability. We've way overestimated, we've way exaggerated the influence of genetics. We think about the people that we come from, and we say we're just like them, and that's what limits us. Our brain is plastic, for God's sake. We have the capacity to change. Dare to change. Dare to take on something new. You know, actually, we're constructed. We're constructed to acquire new ability at any point. Take it on. I mean, we have this power. So we feel way too constrained by what we ought to do. And I think especially older people go into this mode where they say, oh, I can't do that. I was never good at that. And that's not something I can do. I can't do that anymore. You know, the brain is listening when you tell yourself that, right? Stop doing it. Live a little. And part of that, of course, will come back in spades from the point of view of having a positive attitude that will contribute to your sense of well-being.
And just finally, Bob, is passion the cart or the horse here?
Well, it depends who's the driver. If you're the driver, it doesn't matter, because basically you take what you love and you just fully embrace it, and then good things will happen to you. If the activity is the driver, then other things can happen. It may not be exactly what you're looking for. But I think that some of the activities we engaged in are obviously better than others. Gambling, for instance, will lead you toward a path that, if you're lucky, you know, you may get out of there, you know, without losing too much. And when I say losing, I mean your mind, your emotions, and not just money. But there are some activities where we engage in people where we're active and just watching TV or whatever. I think there's so many things out there we can engage in, and it's for us to decide what's the match. Who am I? You know, when some philosophers say, know thyself. You know yourself, and eventually you'll know what to do, what you're looking for. I think, you know, you need to identify and to learn who you are, and then you can connect with the people you'll be happiest with, and you'll contribute to other people, and then you can experience a full life, which is going to be thriving, and you're going to be excited every day just to get up.
Please join me in thanking our fantastic panel.